Hey guys, hey lucky ladies. Hope y'all are doing well today. Hope you've had a good week. I don't know what day it is when y'all are watching this, but as I record this, it is on a Wednesday. So, who knows what day it is when you'll watch this, but I hope y'all are doing well. Last video we were getting into feminine and masculine energies, right? Just giving just the basics on that. And today I thought we would dive in just a little bit deeper. We looked at feminine and masculine last time, but there is another layer to this, right? So within feminine and masculine energies, which we know that we all have both energies, right? So within these energies, there is also a divine part of the energy and also a wounded part, right? You could also think of it as empowered or disempowered, okay? And so there's divine or empowered feminine and divine or empowered masculine, as well as disempowered or wounded feminine energy and disempowered or wounded masculine energy, okay? So we're just going to go through each of these and keep in your mind again that we all have both of these energies, right? And so if you notice any of these characteristics, whether you're male or female, it doesn't really matter, because it just means that the energies within you are a little imbalanced or balanced, right? So we're going to get into it and then just follow along. And if you have any questions at the end, feel free to drop it in the comments and I will come back to it and address it, okay? So let's get started. The divine feminine energy, the traits that this gives off are caring, intuitive, it looks like creative, playful, you're emotionally in tune, right? So all of these things, when we, say look at a woman or a man, and we say, oh my gosh, like they are just so, in tune with themselves, they just know what they want, they're so trusting of themselves, they can have fun, they don't let life take it too difficult, right? Um, that's most likely their feminine energy coming out, right? And in that case, it is very much divine feminine energy, okay? So it also just gives an energy of very magnetic as well. Like they just kind of pull you in, So that is the divine feminine energy, right? And then we look at, well, what is the counterpart to the divine feminine in the negative light, right? And that would be the wounded feminine energy, right? And so the wounded feminine energy, it has a lot to do with the emotions. And so it comes off, they might come off as a little codependent, right? Very self-sacrificing, someone who is always doing things for others, but you can tell like they are tired, like they probably don't really actually want to do these things. So it's someone who's very self-sacrificing, passive. They're not really speaking up necessarily for what they want. Um, you could consider them to probably not have that many boundaries when you think about it. There's not much of a container going on, and typically also when you see wounded feminine energy, they're honestly very likely that they have some wounded masculine energy going on as well, which we'll get into. But it's someone who's very just overly people pleasing. I'm sure you might know a few of these people in your life, right? And also too, a lot of the women who are a great fit for lucky lady coaching, they tend to be very, very kind, very people pleasing, but it's like they haven't learned how to put themselves first, right? And the reality is we need to put ourselves first in some capacity, at least fill up our own cup, right? Before we can give all this energy into other things, right? I know that can be hard if you're a mom or a business owner or all that, but this is why it's so important to integrate both of these energies, right? And so now that we started talking about this integration, let's go on to masculine energy, okay? And so we're going to start with the divine masculine. What does that look like, right? Stereotypically, right? Like if you're talking about a guy, right? it's someone who gives a very grounded presence, right? Just very strong, grounded, knows what he wants, but very kind as well. And again, doesn't have to be a man, right? It can be a woman too. It can be anyone, right? So it's someone who comes off very grounded, right? Self assured. They're purpose driven. They have structure in their life, emotionally stable. Um, you just feel safe. That's actually a great way to say it. You just feel safe with this person, right? Like their container is like their boat is strong. Like this is a good boat, it's a good boat, a good vessel. um Grounded, protective, assertive, all of these great qualities. And then now, if we were to go to the wounded counterpart of the masculine energy, wounded masculine energy looks a little bit controlling, right? It might look aggressive, it might look emotionally numb. And oftentimes, this emotional numbness, sometimes is connected to some addictions, right? Not all the time, but it could look like an addiction to drugs, maybe an addiction to work, addiction to porn, addiction to video games. I don't know it could be anything. It could be addiction to anything, but scrolling even, right? If it's a way to emotionally numb, you might be in a little bit of some wounded masculine energy, right? Because we haven't found structures and the space for us to really allow these emotions to flow and know that it's okay, and also give ourselves the structure and space to just let it out, right? So instead, we go into this numbing mode. Um, the wounded masculine also might be hypercritical, right? Because if they're not self assured and confident in themselves, then of course the critical piece is going to come out at others, right? Or things. Um, so it also might be dominant or even achieving out of a place of fear, right? So yeah, if you notice any of those traits in yourself or in others, they might have some wounded masculine energy, right? And ultimately, we want to be in a place where both our masculine and feminine energies are balanced and divine, right? And so ultimately, ideally, where we want to be is we have structures in our life, we have boundaries, we have goals, we have, values all set in place. And at the same time, we give space to be playful. We give space to have joy, give space to listen to our intuition. And that just radiates that magnetic and that safety, that vibrance of safety, right? And know that too, we all come from different backgrounds, right? And that kind of sets the tone for whether or not we were able to develop our masculine or feminine energies, right? And so people might be in very different stages of this, right? But I want you to know, if you are listening to this and you are, interested in ways of how you can balance this and integrate it, of course, I'm going to be giving these um, tips and tricks, but also, deep conversations around this. But if you are interested in deeper work, the people who would best fit Lucky Lady coaching are those who are, they're overly people pleasing, or they feel just, you know, gassed out, like they're just working all the time, overachieving, um, not having the space to be playful, to be feel joy. They just don't feel like they're at where they could be. And so if that feels like you and you notice a little bit of the wounded feminine and some wounded masculine, you're in the right place, right? Because here's where we're going to help you to integrate these energies to become the absolute best version of you that you can be, okay? So I hope this was helpful. I know it's a lot to take in. And if you head over to my Instagram at Lucky Lady Coaching, I actually have a chart that lays out the masculine and feminine, divine and wounded energies. And that might help to break it down a little bit further, okay? But I hope you'll have a great day. I hope this was helpful. And like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one, okay? Have a good one.